Good evening, everyone. Welcome to District 63's Mentor Mondays. My name is Stephen Shaner, and I'll be your host and Zoom master this evening. I am excited to do some speech contest practice tonight. We'll have some speakers and we'll have some judges, and we will have some fun and we will learn together. It's my honor to present the person that's going to be leading this presentation. Please welcome Distinguished Toastmaster, past District Director, Kim Santan.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see all of you on this stormy Monday night. I hope all of you can stay connected tonight, but super excited to do part 2 of our judges training. If you were not here last week, that is okay. We went through how to be a good contest judge, went over the ballot and some other things that you need to know about a judge, but tonight we're going to put all of that into practice. So first I want to draw your attention to the chat. The chat does have the International Speech Contest Judges Guide. We want you to use that tonight. You will hear 2 different competition type speeches that you would possibly hear during an international speech contest. And we want you to use the ballot and judge them. We want you to come up with a first and a second place. So first off, if this was a regular speech contest, all of the contestants would have been briefed ahead of time. So our 2 speakers tonight are Dory Nolan and Jared Throneberry. So first, we're going to go over the timing rules, and then we're going to pick for spots of who's going to speak first and who's going to speak second. Okay? So the timing rules for the International Speech Contest are 5 to 7 minutes. And I will show you the green screen at 5 minutes, the yellow screen at 6, the red screen at 7, and you will have 30 seconds to wrap it up. If you go over 7 minutes and 30 seconds, you will be disqualified. If you go under 5 minutes or 4 minutes and 30 seconds, you will also be disqualified. Do my contestants understand the timing rules? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now we will draw for spots of who's going to speak first and second. I have 2 pieces of paper, one in my right hand and one in my left hand. So who wants to pick first? Dory says left hand. All right, so Jared, you get my right hand. Jared, you are number 1, and Dory, you will be number 2. Okay, so go ahead and everyone is able to participate. Pull down the ballot. Is anybody having problems getting the ballot?
Son of God.
Yes.
You are having problems?
The problem is that if you post something in the chat before someone enters, it's not there when they come in.
Okay. It's there now. Does everybody see it? We'll keep posting it to make sure everyone has it.
Let's see.
All right.
It may be an iPad thing too.
Yes, it may be an iPad. Yes. All right. Speakers, are you ready? All right. Judges, are you ready? Our first speaker tonight is Jared Throneberry. I could have Jared Throneberry.
Thank you, Madam Contest Master and fellow Toastmasters. How have you dealt being stuck at home these past 10 months? Have you found yourself doing all kinds of crazy, ridiculous things you never would have done the year before? Like organizing? My desktop is clear. My clothes are sorted by color. I renamed my children alphabetical by age. I've been organizing everything and spending a lot of time in the basement, and I stumbled upon this folder that I don't even remember having kept. Inside, you will find my Eagle Scout project plan. Now, if you don't know, this is the culmination from all the years spent in Scouts, from Cub Scouts to Webelos to Boy Scouts, all the merit badges and ranks that you can get, all the way to this point where you complete this big major service project that I never finished. That's right. All those years, one step away, and I just quit. Now, I don't know if I would have received exceptional opportunities if I had only achieved my Eagle Scout, but I could have, and I didn't. And it bothers me. Were you a timid child or an outgoing child when you were younger? Growing up, I was a fairly shy kid all the way till college. And even still, I'm a bit self-conscious and apprehensive. And going through all of these memories in the basement, it reminds me of all the chances I didn't take. There's the play production I didn't try out for. The dances I was too scared to attend. The girls I didn't ask out. The friends I didn't call. The student council seat I never attempted to win. The first chair clarinet that I never practiced hard enough to get. And now I have loved the way that my life has turned out, and any number of those things could have changed the trajectory that my life was on. But every now and then I think of the opportunities given to me to take, and I could have, but I didn't. And it bothers me. Now, you've been in the situation before where a stranger has asked you for money or food on the street. Now, I've been asked hundreds of times, but a few situations early on left me a bit jaded. Now, one in particular, we were walking into church and a man stopped us in a parking lot and asked us for money. And I said, well, I'd love to help, but I'd also love if you join us inside. And he was confused, but he agreed and came in and had a seat on the pew. Now, I don't know if I was too young or naive at the time to recognize when a man, even at 9 o'clock in the morning, is inebriated. He caused a bit of a ruckus in the pew and had to be escorted outside, where a couple guys took him to the bus station to buy him a ticket like he was asking for. But he lied about what he was doing and took advantage of their generosity. Ever since, I've second guessed when someone asks for help. All the cars that are broken down on the side of the road that I just pass right on by. All the online fundraisers my friends post about that I ignore. Maybe it's not reasonable to say yes to everything that you're presented with, but for some, I could have, and I didn't. And it bothers me. Now, in some areas, I think I'm improving. I'm getting a little more mature as I get older. See, for example, I don't want to be the kind of person who's always stuck behind their camera, filming life as it goes along. Now, I don't want to be the person who's filming the concert going on. I want to be the one at the concert enjoying it. I don't want to be the one filming my kid's soccer game. I want to be running up and down the sidelines, cheering them on. And one event in particular that sticks out to me is my daughter's 5th grade talent show. She had choreographed a dance to a song all on her own. Now, I will admit that I had my camera out, but down below, it was for the grandparents' sake, but it's not a very good video because my eyes were on the stage. And I watched my daughter dance and twirl and sway on the floor, and I was mesmerized. better videos have been produced. And I could have, but I didn't. And it made all the difference. Now, every day has decisions to be made. Left or right, yes or no, filet mignon, or a #1 mayonnaise only with a Dr. Pepper. Oftentimes, life won't even give you a decision, but a blank canvas, just waiting for you to paint your masterpiece. The decision part happens now. Decide now that when the time comes, you're going to take a step in the right direction. Decide now that tomorrow you'll make better, smarter, wiser decisions without regret. See, this folder is not the only thing I found. I have a basement full of memories where I made the right choice to act, to take a chance, to be productive, to be adventurous. I could have said no to those. I could have, but I didn't. And it made all the difference. Choose well and don't regret what you could have done. Madam Contest Master.
Thank you, Jared. We will now have 1 minute of silence for those that are judging to complete their ballot. Our second speaker tonight is Dory Nolan. Fix me. Fix me, Dory Nolan.
Imagine with me an old-fashioned toy store. As we walk in, you see new and used toys all along the shelves and tables, each one waiting for a good home. Over in the corner, we see the toy master working his magic at his workbench, repairing a broken toy. Listen, you can hear the tap, tap, tap of the toy master's hammer as he replaces a wheel on a broken train. The store bell chimes, and in comes a little girl. Oh, but she looks sad. She runs to the toy master and, "Mr. Toy Master, can you fix my dolly? She's broken." The toy master smiles and says, "Yes, I will gladly fix your dolly." Starting to cry and clutching her dolly closer, she pleads, "But Mr. Toy Master, please, you've got to fix my dolly. She's broken." The toy master again reaches for the doll, warmly smiles, and says, "Yes, I will fix your dolly, but first you must let it go." Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guest. How often are we like the little girl in this story, pleading to have something fixed in our lives, yet doubting we could ever be our own toy master, not wanting to let it go, not having the faith that it could be fixed? Or have you been more like the toy master? Always there doing the best you could to fix the problems for others. For instance, several years back, I was one of those TSA airport security agents, those fun people that will pat you down and say, oh, no, you can't take that. Well, we would always have our meetings in the hallway. I had to be front and center so I could hear everything, and it never failed. Some lost soul would come barging past everyone else and ask me for directions. One day I turned to my supervisor and I'm like, do I have a flashing neon sign above my head that says, ask me? I know it all? Laughing at me, she managed to say, no, but you do have a look. And that look tells everyone you're willing to help. Unbeknownst to me, I had been the toy master throughout my life for those I loved and often strangers, helping them to find their way and fix their problems. Yet I'd always seen myself as the little girl, wondering what was wrong with me? Why wasn't there someone, a toy master, that could fix my life? That could fix me. Then one day, I was talking to my sister, spending hours trying to help her see what she was doing and reminding her to believe in herself, to love herself, to look at it and then let it go. And I went, what? Where are these words coming from? I actually heard my own words for the first time. It's good advice. So of course I'm going, where are these wise words coming from? Because it's not me. Oh, I know. Maybe I'm channeling some yogi or guru from the great beyond. And not likely. And then it hit me like the toy master's hammer. Those were my words. My words from reading a lot of self-help books. My words from years of hard-earned experiences. And more importantly, my words that were filled with love and compassion from my heart. Words of wisdom that came from me. Evidently, I had learned far more than I realized, yet I need to take my own advice. I do have the ability to be my own toy master. I just have to let go of self-doubt, worry, and have faith in me. I have to practice what I preach and show myself some love. We all deserve love, kindness, and respect. You know what? I do give good advice, and this time I listened. I've come to realize that there are going to be days when I am the little girl, and that's okay. Yet, in order for me to solve those problems and see them clearly, like that little girl, I have to let them go. In my story, I am my own toy master. My friends, I ask you, in your life, your story, are you the little girl, or are you ready to be your own toy master? Contest chair.
Thank you, Dory. All right, we will give you 1 minute to complete your ballot, and then we will give you next instructions for the speech contest. Okay, 1 minute is up. So thank you, Jared and Dory, for presenting those 2 speeches for our practice speech contest. At this time, if it were a real speech contest, as the timer, I would have given the timing results to the chief judge. So I will just announce, since this is a practice, I will announce the timing, which they were both within their time. Dory, you were at 6:58, and Jared, you were at 7:15. So both of you did a great job staying within time. So now, as I'm going to take my timer hat off, put my chief judge hat on, and now I'm the chief judge. And I want you to use your ballot, and based on your scoring that you did, send me a message through the chat that tells me who you put as first place and who you put as second. So between Jared and Dory. And while you're doing that, I'm going to turn it over to another past district director, a member of our district, and past international director, Dawn Biddick, for our discussion tonight. So Dawn.
Thank you so much, Kim. Appreciate that. Oh my gosh. Thank you to our speakers tonight. They were both excellent speeches, and I can't wait to see the results, to be honest with you. And once we see the results, then we have a discussion about it. But let's talk about something else now. The contest is over. You've submitted your judging results. Now what happens? Have any of you judged a contest before and had somebody come up to you after the contest because they kind of knew you were a judge, right? When you raised your hand to turn in your ballot. And has anyone been asked, well, did you agree with the results? Yeah, I see a couple of hands out there. I know I have as well. And what did you tell them? Mikhail, what did you say when that happened, when they asked you if you agreed with the results as a judge?
I actually said I cannot discuss that because I knew they knew the speaker or the speaker was in their club. So I said I cannot discuss that, but I did not agree and I can't go any further. With the actual speaker, they asked me for evaluation advice and I said I could not give that to them because I was a judge, knowing that another contest was coming up. So that's kind of a hard thing. For people who have asked me that question that was not in the contest, I've actually, when everyone left, explained and said, I would have judged this way or this way. And some people was like, well, this person got more laughs. And I said, in humorous contest, sometimes it doesn't matter about the laughs if they were one-liners and it wasn't actually a speech. So for contestants, I couldn't give anything. If I knew that person was like area and we're getting ready to go into division, I don't discuss with anybody. If it was the division or district contest, I've had people ask me and I did not explain to a contestant, but I've explained to other people.
Okay, thank you so much. Has anyone else had that happen that they'd like to share what they said or how they responded? All right, I've got a recommendation for everybody, and based on something that Mikhail just said, I'm deviating just a little bit from the script here. Before I joined this call, I did a search on Google on speech contest judges training. And one of the sites that I went to was from District 39. A gentleman named Ed Johnson from District 39 did a webinar on contest judging. And it was really, really good. I might suggest that you go out there and watch this video. And Mikhail, to your point, when somebody said, well, so-and-so got the most laughs, one of the questions that he was asked during this webinar was, what do you do when somebody is really relating to the audience? They're just making them laugh and they're having such a good time enjoying the speech and they win. Is that right? Is that valid? And Ed's response was, and this is the critical part, I believe, for judging, and I totally agree with what Ed said. Ed said, well, if that's the person that won, then the judges didn't know what they were doing. He said, you have to follow the guidelines on the back of the judge's ballot to score your winners. Just because somebody made the audience laugh and it was really, really entertaining, that's not very many points, really, when you think about it, out of the 100 that are available. 50% of the points are speech development, effectiveness, and speech value. So if somebody kills their speech in that category, chances are they're going to be high up in the ratings, not necessarily because they laughed or they had a good time. And they also talked about gimmicks. Some people will use gimmicks and gimmicks will win a contest. I don't know how many of you saw that international speech contest a few years ago where the young man put on a pair of underpants over his pants. And he even commented on that. He said, much like the laughing and the entertainment, gimmicks to me shouldn't win a contest. I mean, it's cool. It shows original thought, but that's just one category. So judges are really bound to those categories on the back of the judge's ballot. So here's something that he also recommended. If somebody asked you after the contest who you thought should have won, and you were a judge, he said the better response is, and I've used this too. I don't know how many of you know, but not last year, but the 2 and 3 years before, I was actually a contest chair twice for the semifinals at the International Speech Contest. And one of the things that I will never say, and I said this to the audience at the semifinals, one of the things I will never say is tonight's winner is, or tonight's second place is, but rather what I will say is tonight the judges have selected so-and-so in second place. Tonight the judges have selected so-and-so in first place. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me after those semifinal contests and thanked me for saying that, because we can never predict how a contest will end up. You can have a set of judges tonight that would have picked, let's say, Jared as the winner. Tomorrow night, we could have a different panel here and they might select Dory. That's how hard it is to be a judge, really. And so that's why this training is really important. So it's good as a judge to say, you know what? Tonight the judges selected so-and-so, and I support the judge's decision. The other thought I wanted to share was And Mikhail sort of referenced this as well. And Mikhail, I liked how you said not giving an evaluation maybe to someone who might be competing at the next level, especially if there's a conflict of interest. However, I have had several people come up to me as well who maybe didn't win. And I tell them the same thing. I can't give you my scores. I said, but I'm happy to give you an evaluation, help you improve for next time, basically. So yeah, it depends on the situation. So Mikhail, I like how you said that. If there's a conflict of interest at the next level. Well, guess what? I'm done tap dancing because I believe we have the results. So let me share the results, or unless Kim, you as chief judge, would you like to share the results? And then I'll go ahead and ask a few more questions.
Yes, I would be happy to. Tonight, the judges selected as first place Dory and second place Jared.
All right, Kim, thank you so much. I'm going to ask, if we have time, I believe we do, I'm going to ask 4 questions. And these 4 questions come directly from a Toastmasters workshop in contest judging. The first question is, for those of you who scored tonight, who did the judging, why did you score the speakers as you did? So let me ask somebody who, let's say, had Jared as the winner, share why you thought his speech was the best tonight. And keep in mind, this is not meant to put anybody on the spot. It's not a knock on anybody. It's just feedback. We're just talking here.
Is this
So
a
any
trick question?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So
Didn't you
for
just tell us?
I don't remember. No, I'm kidding. For those of you who selected Jared as first place, just tell us why. Why you thought his was the better speech. Like, where did you rank him higher, maybe in the categories?
I'd like to speak on that. This is Ken Elliott.
Yeah, thank you, Ken.
I voted for Jared, but and this is something you talked about last week, which was a takeaway for me, which was you can score the same amount for both, which actually I did.
Oh.
And again, I folded over or kept them so I couldn't see the other one while I was doing the other. But for me, it was just, Jared just had that edge. And I just felt it was more of a takeaway for me. And I felt that Dory didn't give me as much of a takeaway, even though it was fantastic speech and everything. It was just not quite there as much as Jared. So that was the reason I chose Jared.
Yeah, and you know, Ken, I totally agree with that concept because I had them at different point levels in their conclusion. So I like how you stated that. And that's one thing I think we also talked about last week, where when you're judging, you can have a judge's worksheet on your own where you're putting like pluses and minuses for people. Like maybe it's not on the judge's form, but you like this about this person. Yeah, exactly. So that's a great point. Thank you so much. Well, let me hear from somebody who voted for Dory as to why you thought hers was the better speech. Any volunteers? Well, obviously several people voted for.
I was gonna say, I have all of the results here. I can start calling on you if you don't speak up. This is not like school. I will call on you.
Don, I'll be able to get, I will be glad to give you a couple of points that I noted.
Thank you.
This is one of the best speeches that I've seen Jared do because I really loved the emotion that he put in his voice. A couple of times I really felt like he was emotional about it. But Dory, I felt like used a lot of gestures, and also she used the little kid's voice for the little kid and then the adult voice for the adult, and it just put a little more drama into it, for lack of a better word.
And you know, Stacy, just like Ken, I totally agree with that concept because I was watching for, and this is thanks to Jared because I'm also evaluating him after this webinar. But he asked me to watch for his gestures and how he used the screen with his gestures. And so I was really focused on that. And to your point, Stacy, I noticed that sometimes Jared's gestures maybe exceeded the box a little bit, especially when he was talking about Boy Scouts and Webelos, Cub Scouts, and then he kind of kept raising it. Whereas I thought, you know, Dory may have used the box a little better. So yeah, exactly. Just little things like, and that goes back to the pluses and minuses, like Ken was showing us on that screen. So yeah, absolutely, that could have, you know, tipped the scale maybe for some people. All right, yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I noticed was stage presence. The little girl was always over here. The toy master was always over there. We did not distinguish. She distinguished very clearly who was who and where was where, and she was in the middle, which was exactly what her speech was about. And I thought that just made the stage presence, in terms of how she used it, made the story come alive, because she wasn't, you know, and she kept, as a little girl, kept looking over her shoulder to the corner where the toy master was. And there's a lot of different things that kept people in their place, but still helped us see those people in their place.
And that's a great point. And I want to see by a show of hands, how many people noticed that about Dory's speech, where she was on one side or the other for her characters? Well, as you can see on the screen, not even maybe a fourth of us noticed that. So you can see now how sometimes the outcomes of a contest could be questioned. And it's not that anybody was wrong or right in saying it. It's just, that's just what happened. Some people saw it, noticed it, and some people didn't. So I like how you said that, Ed. Okay, let me ask another question for everybody. Do you think you had any biases? Probably subconsciously, maybe. Any biases that may have swayed your voting one way or the other? Jared raised his hand.
If I was a judge, I mean, he's in my club, so that probably might be a little bit of a bias, but that was actually the second time I've heard him give that speech. And he's even between that, we had a club meeting recently and I heard it, and he's improved dramatically, but still that might be a bias.
You know, Jason, that is an excellent point, because I'm on the other side of that. I've heard Dory's speech before and I hadn't heard Jared's. And so while I'm listening to Dory's speech, I'm thinking, okay, forget about the last time she gave this speech. Forget about the last time. I have to focus on this time. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else notice maybe a bias in your voting that you didn't mean? It's just happened.
Nick. Well, I might have meant it. Yeah, we
disqualify yourself, Nick.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is all practice. I was practicing my lack of bias. I mean, just because she's my girlfriend doesn't mean I had to choose her as first place winner.
You better have.
No, he didn't have to. I remember a time when he said, no, I didn't agree with that, the judges.
Yeah.
And it was entirely that his vote went against his girlfriend's. So he doesn't have to be biased. He can go against it. On the other hand, I was biased. This is about the 6th time I've heard that speech from Joy. And this was absolutely the best job she's ever done at that speech. And so yeah, I was biased.
I have to agree with it, because we belong to the same club, but sometimes it is hard. But this time I wanted to make sure that we are not biased and give the due credit. They were almost the parity, the difference is very little. Basically some of the things which we mentioned, the stage presence and the voice, and also the mannerism, that's what I looked at. That made a little difference.
I have also heard Jared give that speech before, and I thought it was much improved too.
Very nice. Stacy, you had your hand up.
You know, I had not noticed it before. And then Ken mentioned something that brought my attention to it. Jared's speech, he talked about Boy Scouts, and Ken said that he connected with that more. Dory used a doll, and I'm wondering even if that would almost bias you for you know, something geared more toward women and something geared more toward men.
Actually, if I could add to that, Stacy, this is Ken again. I actually gave a speech recently at our club where I had been very big in Indian Trails, Indian Princesses, which is a similar kind of program to the Scouts. So now you ask that question, Don, it made me realize probably I was positive bias towards Jared without even realizing it until after you mentioned it just now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ed made a really good point earlier I want to just follow up on as well. So thank you for that, Ken. I appreciate that. You know, biases for knowing somebody or hearing a speech from somebody in the past, that bias can go either way. You could say, okay, I've heard that before, and that's a really good one, so I'm gonna vote for that. Or you could say, like in Nick's case, you could say, well, this is my girlfriend, you know, maybe I'll be a little tougher on her. You know, not coming out and saying that, but made me thinking that. I can't show any favoritism. So you can kind of go both ways on a bias in that situation. What do you guys think?
Definitely. If I've heard
Yeah.
that speech 6 times, I'm kind of sick of it. So any other speech I hear is going to be novel and interesting.
Well, you
Right?
get to hear it one more time because this is also my, I started my third pathway, and this is my level 1 do repeat speech. So you get to hear it again, dear.
Sometimes you can have a judging bias based on speaking position. When you have the first speaker come and you think the first speaker is the greatest thing since sliced bread, what do? Give that person 100? What if the second speakers and subsequent speakers are better?
And you know, Mark, to your point, I would say that the person who really doesn't get the score that they deserve after I hear them speak is the first speaker. And here's why. Because I always want to leave a little bit of room above and below that person as I go. And that's just my style. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's just my style. I always like to leave a little bit of room. And then I may go back at the end and maybe adjust it a little bit, you know, because those scores are just working numbers for you as a judge. And then you decide at the end. So yeah, absolutely. I have heard that bias for years and years and years. And I remember an international speech contest not too long ago where I heard some excellent speeches from the first, second, third speakers. And then almost equally, maybe a little bit more so, but equally, ninth and 10th speakers, same thing. And the ninth and 10th speakers won, got first and second, even though the first and second and third speakers I thought did as well. So you're absolutely right. You know, as a contestant, they just love to be selected as the last speaker every time. You can ask just about any speaker and they'll say, I want to be last. I want to be last. They want to leave that lasting impression. So that's a good segue into the last question. And then I'll turn it back over to Kim. I don't know if she wants to do a Q&A. But then the last question I have is for anybody really is what can we do you think, to make better judging decisions?
Well, from me, I think it also helps when we're having a contest if the chief judge reminds the judges, okay, you may know these people, you may be the girlfriend, boyfriend of someone here, but right now, this time, it's the speech. It's how they put it on. Do they use their stage? Do they give the expressions? Remind them, and you know, that just imagine that it stops here and this is it. You know. And
yeah.
When
I was going to say,
I
absolutely. We kind of touched on this last week, just real quick, that maybe the most important part of the contest is at the judge's briefing.
Yeah.
And the chief judge can make a huge difference sometimes. Okay, I'm sorry, someone else was about to speak.
there's something that I like or dislike, I try not, well, I don't give any points or take away any points unless I can find a category that it belongs to, right? So if, hey, the person was really funny, that's an example we used earlier. That's not really on the ballot. I mean, I guess maybe effectiveness, maybe add 1 point since, yeah, and I'll mute because of the noise.
Absolutely. I tell you, for me, the hardest time to ever judge a contest, and it wasn't even in Toastmasters, it was actually in Rotary. I was judging a high school speech contest, and the winner was going to get a scholarship. And I remember one of the students was giving a speech on a topic that I totally disagreed with her position on the topic. And right away, at 30 seconds into it, I knew that. But 35 seconds into it, I had to stop myself and say, wait a minute, I'm not judging her opinion. I'm judging her delivery, her speech in itself. And so I had to really refocus and just look at that as a speech and not necessarily her opinions that she was sharing, I guess you could say. So for me, that's what fortunately I did that maybe could have caused a problem later on. But anyway, someone else, what do you think we could do differently to make a better judging decision? Hey, there's Kristen. Welcome, Kristen.
You know, Don, I think they may be onto something with the regional finals. I kind of like the idea of everybody taping their speech, and then you get to watch one of the morning, one of the afternoon, one tomorrow, instead of putting them back to back to back, because it's really hard for me to remember what were those first speeches about when I get to number 10.
Yeah. Yeah, that video thing throws a whole new twist into all of this. Because remember now, as a judge, you're not really looking at camera quality, right? So you've got to kind of take that out of your mind and focus on the speech itself. So that kind of adds another level of complexity, I think, to the judging. All right. Well, you guys have been fantastic with this discussion, and I will.
I have something.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
one thing that people can do as judges is actually know how to evaluate. You have your judges tally, but a lot of people, I was late coming into Jared's speech. A lot of people talked about good movement, but to me, I didn't see good movement with Dory. And so I didn't raise my hand. And so that's something different. She actually stood on one side, but she actually didn't turn for her and the master. So for me, I would have wanted positions in the floor. This is where she was here. This is actually where she was at the airport. And then she was in the middle when she talked about herself. And to me, that wasn't as clear. So I wouldn't have ranked movement as higher. The little part I saw with Jared, both used hand gestures, but some of them were incorrect. So for me, I think to help judges out is to actually learn how to evaluate and what areas you should be evaluating in, so you know what to look for in a speech.
And you know, I think that is a good point. I think really good evaluators can also make really good judges, but we have to be careful there because they're separate. When it comes to a contest, we have to focus on the judge's ballot and the categories. It's not necessarily an evaluation. Having those evaluation skills, I think, can help, but it's totally separate. Evaluation is evaluation, judging is judging. But if you're good in one, you're probably pretty good in the other as well. And to your point, that's what we can do as judges to maybe make a better decision, is keep those separate. So I like how you brought that up about evaluating. So thank you. Well, let me turn this back over to Kim for any additional comments that she might have, or
Well,
if she
one
wants.
thing I'd like to add in real quick is that when it is a contest, because of the rules on measuring on how much room you have, you may have this much space instead of this much space. So if you step here, you're into the past, and you just barely move a half an inch and you're into the future. So you've got to remember, when it's in a contest, you don't have that space, especially if it's being videoed and on Zoom. You do what you can do. And that's one thing that's different from speaking at a club and evaluating, or being in a contest and being judged. It's, you've got more rules to go by.
Yeah, and that is a very good point. I remember, just one last quick comment, and then I'll turn it over to Kim. I remember last year's international contest when the eventual champion started to give his speech. Did you see how he used his screen? I've never seen it in my life. But he would be talking, and then he would be like this in the screen, and then he'd be like this. And he was using all these different positions on the screen. And I thought, oh my gosh, how unique is that? And I thought, he might win because of this. I kept thinking he might win because of that gimmick, if you will. He gave a great speech, but I think that may have helped put him over the top. I don't know. But if you get a chance, look at last year's winner. It's pretty interesting the way he delivered that speech. So Kim, I've talked, I think, long enough. I'll turn it back over to you. Hey, contestants, Jared, Dory, great job. Great job.
Well, thank you, Don, for leading this section of our judges training. And yes, again, thank you, Dory and Jared, for enduring all of the comments and helping us make this judges training successful. Are there any other questions from any of the other participants that you might have regarding judges training, judging, ballots, anything?
This is Carol. I have a question on the ballot. It has a place for you to sign it that's an electronic signature.
Mhm.
Is there a level we get to, especially since it's international, that's going to have to be submitted? Or I'm okay on the club level. But
Yes.
when we get to area and the other one, are we going to have to be able to do that?
That is a good question, and that is something that is in my research for this week to find out, because if we just do it through the chat, there's no official signature. So
Right.
how does that work at other levels? And I do not know the answer to that question. I don't know if Stephen or Don, you might know what the official ruling is.
Because I actually tried to sign it just to see what it was like, and you have to have a password, and it seems a bit complicated.
I don't know the official word on that. And I haven't been involved in contests above area and division, so I'm not sure how they're handling it higher up. How was it handled at the district last year? How did the ballots come in?
Stacy, Marty, Kristen?
Kim, you were the contest master at the international speech contest.
Is that the one I don't remember. I've been so many things.
I think we did use the chat, and I think they came into you and one other person, and then
Yep.
you guys, the ballot counters, and you went off and counted ballots, I think.
We did do that. That was the first time because it was only April. We didn't really have any instructions back then. So I don't know if anything more has come out since now we're more up to speed on this Zoom stuff. So I will find out.
Yeah, for one thing, they've updated all those forms and they've made them fillable forms and things like that, which they didn't have last year.
Right. So
Probably one suggestion, you can have a folder and create access to only the judges, so that they can drop the file. So only people who have access to the Google Drive or anything, they are the only ones who is going to put it. When they put the file, it is assumed as a signature.
On
yes,
that thing, the
that's an
fact that
idea.
somebody can log into their Zoom account, right? That no one can, conceivably no one can imposter you on Zoom. Or if you accept ballots via email, that might be even better, right? Because whoever has your email password has your entire life anyway. So they basically have power of attorney if they have your email account.
Yeah.
That maybe could be considered a signature. That's how I rationalized it when doing area contests before in Zoom, but that may not be right. Like if there's an official word, we should definitely follow that.
Yeah, that is definitely on my to-do list because next week is general contest training, what to expect and how to handle speech contests at different levels. So I will definitely research that this week. Hopefully have an answer by next Monday.
My only comment to that would be, if possible, find the most expedient solution. When we did our speech contest, it was painfully long, counting ballots.
Yes, it can definitely be long if you're not efficient on collecting them. That's why I do like the chat. There are some, scary thoughts if somebody sends it to the wrong person or, it gets out there for everyone. But I will definitely research that this week and see if we can come up with some efficiencies for that and make it official.
So in the
And
best,
on the upside, Kim, you could download the chat so that you'd have a record of who voted for who.
yeah. In the best practices document, collect and count ballots, Chief Judge, each judge should be ready to submit their ballot digitally via the agreed upon communication method. Judges and timers should email their completed ballot to the Chief Judge and counters directly, or submit their ballot using an external messaging platform that allows file sharing. Ensure judges know at what point in the contest they should submit their ballot.
There you go. There's your official answer. So it's whatever we decide. How's that?
And
for-
again, this is just the best practices. So I think it's really up to the chief judge and the judges to determine the best way they're going to handle that for the contest. So.
And I can tell you, when I was chief judge, I did make sure that the ballots went to 2 people. So I was myself and Mary Mixon, who also is very big into speech contests. So I felt very confident that between her and I, we would not make a mistake in the counting. So we did make sure we handled it that way. All right, well, it is 9:12 Eastern Time, 8:12 Central. So I really appreciate all of you coming. I hope this definitely was beneficial for you. Hopefully you learned some things about judging, and we can make some great judges and pick great winners this contest season. So I will turn it back over to Stephen.
All right, thank you, Kim. Let's give Kim and Don and our contestants and everyone who practices a judge and everybody that's online in the entire world a big round of applause for this evening. We get everybody included. We're having a good time. So thanks for joining us. This has been a fun and very educational session. Future, next Monday, February 1st. Good grief, February already. How to run a speech contest by our favorite presenter on Mentor Mondays, Kim Santan again. On February 8th, we'll have a discussion on club open houses. February 15th, the basic understanding of TM and the club coach. On February 22nd, Kristen Phillips will be doing a presentation. I don't have the title or the subject of that yet. March 1st, Kim will be back to give us a district leadership overview. March 8th, Zoom training. And then on March 15th, videography training. Those are 2 sessions I think we should try and get as many people to as we can. Of course, all of them we should, but that's what's coming up over the next few weeks. Does anyone have anything else for the good of the district?
So I will make my weekly announcement, and this will be the last week that I make it, because the deadline for applications for elected positions is January 31st. So we're still looking for some division directors, and the trio, all of those are elected positions. After that, you'll hear me announce that we need area directors. So last announcement for elected positions, please get your applications in this week.
Time is going fast. Get that paperwork filled out and get it submitted. We need your help. Madi, we're also going to need some help for the spring conference, correct? I know that Jason has a few chairs lined up, but we're going to need help. So if you're interested in helping out for the spring conference, please let Madi or myself or Jason Cronin know. He's the chair. Jason is the chair for the conference, and he needs some other chairs to help out with some things. So please let us know if you can help out.
I'll help.
Who said that?
Dory.
All right, excellent. Thanks so much. I'm gonna write that down here real quick because I might forget.
I can't compete, so I've got so I'll help.
All right, thank you much.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think we should give Stephen a round of applause. He's been doing fantastic with these Mentor Mondays. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much. I've been having fun. This has been great, and it's great seeing everybody's face every week. So much for social distancing. We're socially connecting, and I really like that. So thanks for being here, everyone.